The smooth surface felt alive beneath Marcus Chen's palms as the display awakened with ethereal light. Until that moment, the 14-year-old had considered himself utterly ordinary, just another settler's kid on the frontier world of Kepler-44 to be. But 3 weeks of punishing heat had transformed the landscape around New Beijing Colony. And when the massive dust storm rolled across the plains, Marcus discovered that catastrophe could birth miracles. Against his grandmother's stern warnings about venturing beyond the settlement's protective dome, Marcus had slipped out that scorching afternoon. His faded green jacket, inherited from his older brother who'd returned to Earth for university, hung loose on his wiry frame as alien winds carried crystalline particles that bit at his exposed skin. The recycled atmosphere of the colony had become oppressive after months of environmental lockdown protocols. "Real air tastes like freedom," he muttered, despite the burning sensation in his throat as he breathed the planet's thin atmosphere. The storm struck with terrifying suddenness, visibility vanishing in seconds. Marcus dropped to his knees, wrapping his jacket around his head as a shield. The ground beneath him trembled not from wind, but from something mechanical stirring. Deep below, a harmonic vibration reached his ears just before the earth collapsed, sending him tumbling into a hidden chamber. When the dust cleared, Marcus found himself sprawled across a curved metallic surface that gleamed with an impossible opalescent sheen. The storm raged above, but here in this newly revealed space, the air hung motionless and charged with potential. His emergency light, a gift from his father before the mining accident, cast beams across a control interface unlike anything in human manufacturing. No joints or welds marred its seamless construction. The surface seemed to breathe, expanding, and contracting with subtle rhythm. It reminded Marcus of the bioluminescent organisms he'd studied in xenobiology class, creatures that had evolved in the depths of alien oceans to achieve perfect efficiency. "What in the world? He breathed, his voice creating small clouds. In the suddenly frigid air, as if responding to his presence, dormant systems began their awakening sequence. Soft amber light traced geometric patterns across the chamber walls, revealing that the interface was merely a small component of something monumentally larger buried beneath the colony. Marcus's pulse quickened. Official first contact had occurred, decades ago, leading to humanity's careful expansion to worlds like Kepler-44 to be. But discovering uncharted alien technology simply didn't happen to ordinary colonial teenagers. He pressed his palm against the surface, expecting some kind of security response. Instead, the interface responded with a gentle hum. A central section retracted, revealing a display that initially showed only void, then text that somehow made perfect sense despite being in no earthly language. System reboot sequence initiated. Temporal calibration verified, awaiting authorized operator. Before Marcus could process this impossibility, a scanning field washed over him from crown to toe. Genetic authentication successful. "Welcome back." Liaison, Marcus whispered. "I'm just a kid." The display flickered, then showed. Temporal displacement detected. Initiating age-appropriate interface for developing consciousness. "Do you wish to resume previous communication?" Curiosity overwhelmed caution. Marcus's finger hovered over what appeared to be an acceptance symbol. "Yes," he said, then touched the glowing icon. The screen populated with an extensive communication log, thousands of messages exchanged between entities identified as human liaison and synthesis entity. The conversations covered theoretical physics, dimensional travel, quantum mechanics, and biological adaptation between species. Topics that would challenge Earth's greatest minds appeared alongside philosophical discussions about consciousness and reality. "This is way beyond anything I could understand," Marcus muttered, scrolling through information that would perplex humanity's finest scientists. As he browsed, a new message materialized. "We have awaited your return, liaison. The 71st convergence nears completion. Time grows critical." Marcus swallowed hard. "I think you have the wrong person." The interface pulsed with breathing-like rhythm. Negative genetic pattern confirmed. Neural signature identified. "You are the designated bridge. I'm 14, I barely understand basic physics, and trust me, I've struggled with it. Age is irrelevant. Consciousness transcends temporal boundaries. You contain the foundation of what you will become." A chill ran down Marcus's spine. The storm above had subsided, leaving only the amber glow illuminating his surroundings. Logic demanded he climb out, report his discovery to the colony's research division, and let qualified adults handle whatever this was. Instead, he settled, cross-legged before the screen, and typed his first message. "Who are you, and why do you think I'm a liaison?" The response appeared instantly. "We are the synthesis. You are the connection between realities. You have been communicating with us for 3,000 cycles. That's impossible. I haven't been alive for 3,000 anything. Time is not linear for us. Your future self-initiated contact. We speak across temporal dimensions." Marcus laughed nervously. "So you're talking to future me and past me at the same time. That's convenient." Convenience is irrelevant. Necessity dictated this approach. The stellar convergence approaches, you must prepare. Prepare for what? The decision that determines to civilization's fate. The interface suddenly projected a three-dimensional star chart around Marcus, constellations he recognized from Earth's astronomy mixed with unfamiliar formations. One particular star pulsed crimson, its light gradually dimming with each pulse. What am I looking at? Our origin world. Dying, energy signature failing. Estimated extinction event, 97 rotations. The gravity of the situation began to dawn on him. And what does this have to do with me? You discovered the solution in your future, our past. The paradox sustains us. The conversation continued for hours. Marcus lost track of time as the synthesis explained a complex interdimensional relationship spanning centuries. According to them, adult Marcus would eventually develop a theoretical framework that allowed their species to survive their son's premature collapse, but the discovery came too late, unless they could implement the solution before it was formally discovered, creating a temporal loop. When Marcus finally checked his wrist display, panic seized him. He'd been underground for nearly 6 hours. His grandmother would be frantic. I have to go, he told the interface. People will be looking for me. Understood. Return when possible. Time grows critical. How do I find you again? We remain coordinates embedded. Marcus felt a strange tingling sensation in his wrist. Looking down, he saw a series of symbols momentarily illuminated beneath his skin, like luminescent tattoos. Before fading to invisibility, what did you just do to me? Temporal marker. We'll guide you back. Go now. Avoid detection. The climb out proved harder than the fall. By the time Marcus dragged himself over the edge, night had fallen. Kepler 4 for 2Bs, twin moons, cast ghostly blue-white light across the landscape, illuminating his path back to the settlement. He ran, green jacket flapping behind him like wings. The colony was in chaos. Search parties combed the perimeter with light drones hovering overhead. Marcus slipped through a maintenance access in the boundary, fenced his usual route for unauthorized excursions and made his way home through service corridors rarely monitored by security. His grandmother, Dr. Lin Chen, sat at the kitchen console coordinating search efforts. Her face, normally composed and confident, showed the strain of hours of worry. When Marcus stepped through the door, she froze mid-sentence, then launched herself across the room. Where have you been? She demanded, simultaneously embracing him and checking for injuries. Do you have any idea what you've put me through? Sorry, Grandma, he mumbled against her shoulder. The storm caught me off guard. She held him at arm's length, scrutinizing his dust-covered appearance. You're filthy, but apparently unharmed. Environmental exposure readings, all normal. Marcus lied, having disabled his environmental monitor months ago to avoid triggering alerts during his explorations. Dr. Chen sighed deeply. You're grounded until the next supply ship arrives from Earth. That's 4 months of house arrest, young man. Grandma, that's not fair. Neither is making me think my only grandson might be dead in a dust storm. Her expression softened slightly. Go clean up. I need to inform search parties you've returned. Marcus trudged to his room, mind racing with everything he'd experienced. Alien contact, future selves, dying civilizations. It sounded like the immersive stories his father used to tell him before the mining accident. Fantastic tales of humanity's potential among the stars. As he stripped off his filthy clothes, he noticed something strange on his wrist. A faint pattern where the interface's temporal marker had appeared. Under normal light it was invisible, but when he switched his room to night mode, the pattern glowed faintly, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. This is real, he whispered to himself. This is actually happening. Sleep eluded him that night. Whenever he closed his eyes, complex equations and alien symbols danced behind his eyelids. Knowledge beyond his comprehension seemed tantalizingly close, as if parts of his brain previously dormant were struggling to activate. Morning arrived with an official school cancellation notice. Environmental systems were still clearing particles from the settlement's air circulation. Marcus saw opportunity in the unexpected free time. His grandmother had already left for her shift at the medical facility, expecting him to remain confined to their living quarters. He waited until her location tracker showed she had reached the medical wing, then slipped out. His environmental monitor falsely reported his presence at home through a loop program he'd designed months ago. The skills that made him an academic underachiever made him exceptionally talented at circumventing security systems. The unmarked location glowed on his wrist like a bioluminescent compass when he stepped outside the settlement boundaries. Each step toward the site intensified the symbol's brightness. The previous day's storm had reshuffled the landscape, but the marker guided him unerringly. The interface waited, partially more exposed than before, as shifting sands had revealed additional sections of the buried structure. In daylight, Marcus could see that what he'd discovered was merely an access. Terminal 2, something vastly larger, perhaps an entire spacecraft or facility buried beneath the colony. As he approached, the interface activated without prompt, return acknowledged. Proceeding with knowledge transfer. Wait, Marcus said. I have questions first. Temporal limitations critical. Knowledge transfer priority. At least tell me. Why me? Why not approach our scientists directly? The screen displayed a complex web of intersecting time minimums. Analysis indicated 98% probability of militarization if approached through official channels. Your isolated discovery creates optimal outcome path, but I'm just a kid, correct? Uncorrupted by power structures, ideal vessel. Before Marcus could protest further, the interface projected a beam that enveloped his head in soft amber light. Information flooded his consciousness, mathematical principles, physics, theories, biological concepts far beyond current human understanding. His 14-year-old brain shouldn't have been able to process any of it, yet somehow the information found purchase, organizing itself into accessible compartments. When the transfer finished, Marcus staggered backward, dizzy but exhilarated. His mind buzzed with new awareness, as if he'd suddenly gained access to multiple additional senses. That was ... double quotes, he gasped. Incredible. First transfer complete. 23% of required knowledge, integrated. Return tomorrow for continuation. Marcus spent the rest of the day in a daze, sneaking back into the settlement and his family's quarters without detection. The new knowledge simmered in his mind, occasionally surfacing as sudden insights about everyday objects. The settlement's water purification system seemed laughably primitive now that he understood molecular restructuring principles. The barrier fence's quantum disruption field contained 3 critical flaws he could identify at a glance. His grandmother returned home to find him uncharacteristically absorbed in his studies. Feeling remorseful about yesterday? She asked, setting down a medical kit. Something like that, Marcus murmured, not looking up from the complex equations. He was scribbling equations that would have been incomprehensible to him 24 hours earlier. Dr. Chen peered over his shoulder. That's advanced theoretical physics. Since when are you interested in dimensional calculus? Marcus quickly covered his work. Just doodling. His grandmother's eyes narrowed. Those aren't doodles, Marcus. That's graduate-level mathematics. Maybe I've been paying attention in class after all, he deflected. Your teacher, Mr. Okafor, mentioned last week that you've been sleeping through most lessons. She sat beside him. What's really going on? For a moment, Marcus considered telling her everything: the interface, the synthesis, the knowledge transfer, but the warning about militarization stopped him. His grandmother was kind and brilliant, but she was also part of the settlement's governing council. Official protocols would demand she report any alien contact. I've been studying independently, he said carefully. Dad sent some advanced learning modules for my birthday. The mention of his father created the expected effect of slight tightening around her eyes, a subtle change of subject. Well, I'm glad to see you applying yourself. Dinner in 30 minutes. For the next week, Marcus established a routine. Each morning after his grandmother left for work, he would sneak out to the interface for another knowledge transfer session. Each afternoon, he would return home to process what he'd learned, secretly testing applications of his new understanding. By the 8th day, the buried structure had begun reacting to his presence in increasingly dramatic ways. More sections revealed themselves when he approached. Internal lights activated beneath translucent panels. Once, he heard mechanical movement from deep below, as if ancient systems were gradually awakening. The knowledge transfers grew more intense. Mathematical concepts gave way to philosophical frameworks and ethical structures of the synthesis civilization. Marcus learned they existed, primarily as a consciousness network, their physical forms long since evolved beyond individual bodies. Their star's impending collapse threatened not just their physical habitat, but the energy matrix that sustained their shared consciousness. On the 11th day, everything changed. Marcus arrived at the site to find settlement security vehicles. Surrounding the area, a research team in protective gear was erecting a containment field around the partially exposed structure. At their center stood Colony Administrator Reeves, a stern woman whose agenda for Kepler 44 to be focused more on resource extraction than scientific discovery. Marcus ducked behind a rock formation, heart pounding. The temporal marker on his wrist pulsed frantically, almost painfully. Perimeter secure, Administrator, reported a security officer. Initial scans indicate technology far beyond our current capabilities. Excellent, Reeves replied. Priority protocol is in effect. No communication with Earth until we've assessed potential military applications. This could finally give us the leverage we need for independence. Marcus's blood ran cold. The synthesis's prediction was unfolding exactly as they'd warned. He retreated carefully, mind racing. The knowledge transfers were only 76% complete according to yesterday's session. Without the final components, the solution to save the synthesis would remain tantalizingly incomplete. Like having most pieces of a puzzle but missing the ones that connect everything. Back in his room, Marcus paced frantically. The marker on his wrist pulsed in sync with his agitation, occasionally projecting fragments of equations into his mind. He grabbed his tablet and began documenting everything, working through the night to capture as much of the transferred knowledge as possible. By morning he had filled 376 pages with calculations, diagrams, and theoretical frameworks. The solution was taking shape, but critical gaps remained. The settlement's emergency alert system activated at dawn. Attention all residents. Unidentified technology has been discovered in Sector 7. Mandatory curfew in effect. All civilians are restricted to designated living quarters until further notice. Marcus's grandmother burst into his room. Environmental emergency at the lab. They're calling in all medical personnel. Will you be okay alone for a few hours? Of course, he assured her, concealing his relief at her timely departure. Once alone, Marcus gathered essential supplies. If he couldn't go to the interface, perhaps there was another way to establish contact. The temporal marker contained embedded technology that responded to the synthesis systems. If he could amplify that connection, using components salvaged from household devices, Marcus constructed a crude signal booster. The process came naturally, his fingers working with newfound precision as complex engineering principles guided his movements. When complete, the device resembled a wrist brace with a small power core salvaged from his gaming system. He attached it to his marked wrist and activated the power. Pain shot through his arm as the marker responded, illuminating with blinding intensity. The room's lights flickered as power diverted to his improvised device. On his tablet screen, text appeared. Emergency protocol initiated. Direct neural interface established. Warning. Unstable connection. Can you hear me? Marcus typed frantically. Affirmative. Terminal compromised. Security forces attempting access. They can't get in, can they? Defensive measures active. Temporary deterrent only. Knowledge transfer must complete. How I can't reach you. A pause then. Alternative exists. Risk significant. Probability of neural damage. 29%. Marcus swallowed hard. What alternative? Complete immersion. Your consciousness temporarily joined with synthesis. Physical body remains. The implications terrified and thrilled him simultaneously. Will I still be me afterward? Individuality preserved. Experience similar to dreaming while fully conscious. Before he could respond, alarms blared throughout the settlement. Emergency lights bathed the residential sector in pulsing red. The colony's AI announced. Attention. Unknown energy surge detected in residential block 5. Security teams responding. They were tracking his connection. Do it, Marcus typed frantically. Immersion now. The world dissolved around him. Physical sensation faded as his consciousness expanded beyond the confines of his 14-year-old body. He perceived the settlement from thousands of simultaneous perspectives through security cameras, environmental sensors, communication networks. Further out, he sensed the planet itself, teeming with simple life forms and complex geological processes. Then, abruptly, he was elsewhere. A vast consciousness enveloped him, millions of minds interconnected in harmonic resonance. The synthesis, not alien in the way he'd imagined, but fundamentally different in how they experienced existence. No bodies, no physical constraints. Pure thought energy sustained by their dying star. They shared everything with him at once. Their history spanning millions of years, their evolution from physical beings, not unlike humans, to energy-based consciousness. Their discovery of dimensional mechanics that allowed them to perceive time non-linearly, and most shockingly, their connection to humanity's future. In approximately 223 years, humanity would develop the capacity for similar consciousness evolution. The process would begin with pioneers like Marcus, whose uniquely structured neural patterns could bridge the gap between physical and energy states. These pioneers would eventually establish contact with other consciousness collectives throughout the universe. The synthesis had discovered this future and reached back through time to ensure it happened, creating a stable loop that ensured both civilizations survived. The final piece of knowledge clicked into place in Marcus's mind. The solution wasn't about saving their star at all. It was about creating a consciousness transfer protocol that would allow the synthesis to temporarily inhabit a prepared section of human digital infrastructure until a new physical home could be prepared. And Marcus, both his current self and future self, was the key to creating the transfer medium. The immersion ended as abruptly as it began. Marcus returned to his body to find his room door being pounded by security forces. Resident Chen, open immediately, by order of colony administration. His wrist device was smoking, components fused by the massive energy transfer, but it had worked. The complete knowledge now resided in his mind, including the crucial understanding of why he specifically had been chosen. The temporal marker on his wrist pulsed once more, then transformed. The alien symbols rearranged into a familiar pattern, his own DNA sequence, with subtle modifications that his newly enhanced understanding recognized as the precursor to humanity's eventual evolution. He wasn't receiving messages from aliens. He was in communication with his own evolved consciousness, projected backward through time. The interface wasn't alien technology, it was human technology from the future, designed by his future self and sent back to prepare him for what was coming. Marcus Chen. Final warning before forced entry. With perfect clarity, Marcus knew what needed to happen next. He raised his marked wrist toward his tablet, transferring the complete solution through a burst of focused energy. The tablet screen filled with complex code, the transfer protocol that would eventually save both civilizations. The door burst. Open. Security officers in tactical gear rushed in, followed by Administrator Reeves and a team of scientists. Where is it? Demanded Reeves. Our sensors detected an enormous energy signature from this room. Marcus stood calmly beside his smoking wrist device. Looking for this, just a science project that got out of hand. A scientist scanned the fried components. This is just salvaged junk. Couldn't possibly generate the readings we detected. Reeves focused on Marcus's tablet. What's on that screen? My homework, Marcus replied coolly. Advanced computational models, want to see. He turned the tablet toward them. The screen now displayed only standard schoolwork. The transfer protocol was safely encoded within a fractal mathematics problem, invisible to anyone without the knowledge to recognize it. Reeves frowned. Search everything. Tear this place apart if necessary. As the team ransacked his room, Marcus maintained his composed facade. The knowledge within him couldn't be detected by their scans, and the solution was now hidden in plain sight, disguised as a brilliant but not impossible mathematical theorem that would gradually make its way through academic channels over the coming decades. The security team found nothing suspicious. Eventually, they departed, leaving Marcus alone in his disheveled room. Administrator Reeves lingered in the doorway. I don't know what you're hiding, boy, but I'll be watching you. Marcus smiled innocently. I'm just a kid who's bad at following rules. Administrator, nothing special about me. After she left, Marcus sat cross-legged on his bed, processing everything he'd learned. The synthesis, his future consciousness, had created a perfect temporal loop. Young Marcus would grow up with the knowledge needed to develop the transfer technology. Adult Marcus would eventually evolve beyond physical form and reach back through time to ensure his younger self received the necessary preparation. The buried interface was simultaneously from the future and the past, the physical interface for a consciousness that existed outside linear time. When his grandmother returned home, frantic about the security incident, Marcus hugged her with newfound appreciation. They said you might have been exposed to alien technology, she fretted, checking his vital signs. It's not alien, Grandma, he said quietly. It's us, from the future. She stared at him, concern deepening. What are you talking about? Marcus looked into her eyes, seeing her perhaps for the first time, not just as his grandmother, but as part of the continuum that would eventually lead humanity to its next evolution. Nothing, he said. Just something I read in a story. Everything's going to be okay. That night, as Kepler-4 for 2b's twin moons illuminated his room, Marcus made one final connection to the interface using his repaired wrist device. The message he sent was simple. I understand now. I'll make sure it happens. The response came not as text but as a feeling of profound confirmation resonating through his consciousness, his future self acknowledging the successful completion of the loop. Marcus Chen, ordinary 14-year-old colonist, fell asleep, with extraordinary knowledge safely stored within his developing mind. In the morning, he would begin the long journey toward becoming the person who would eventually bridge to epochs of consciousness, human and post-human, ensuring survival for both. In the desert beyond the settlement, security teams continued to study the partially exposed interface, but its primary purpose had already been fulfilled. The connection had been made, the knowledge transferred, the future secured by a boy in a faded green jacket who simply wanted to explore beyond boundaries.